ஏதன் கண்ணே நிலையாகி இருந்திடுமே உலகமெல்லாம் எதனதெல்லாம் எதனின்று அனைத்துலகும் எழுமோ மற்றிவையாவும் எதன் பொருட்டா எதனால் வையமெல்லாம் எழுந்திடும் எல்லாமும் எதுவே ஆகும் அதுதானே உளபொருளாம் சத்தியமாம் அச்சொருபம் அகத்தில் வைப்பார். கற்றும் அடங்காரில் கல்லாதாரே உய்ந்தார் பற்று மதப்பேயின் பாலுய்ந்தார் சுற்று பல சிந்தைவாய் நோய் உய்ந்தார் சீர்தேடி ஓடலுய்ந்தார் உய்ந்ததொன்றென்றுண கற்றும் அடங்காரில் கல்லாதாரே உய்ந்தார் பற்று மதப்பேயின் பாலுய்ந்தார் சுற்று பல சிந்தைவாய் நோய் உய்ந்தார் சீர்தேடி ஓடலுய்ந்தார் உய்ந்ததொன்றென்றுண Namo Ramana. We are coming to the midpoint of this Nularivu Prakaranam, or the dangers that could arise if one is attached to knowledge arising from books. We have covered 2 verses in this. Makkal Manaivi Mudal மற்றவர்கள் கற்பமதி மக்கள் ஒரு குடும்பம் ஆனவே மிக்க கல்வி உள்ளவர்தம் உள்ளத்தே ஒன்றலபல் 100 குடும்பம் உள்ளது யோகத்தடையாய்வோர் எழுத்தறிந்த தாம் பிறந்த தெங்கே என்றெண்ணி எழுத்தை தொலைக்க எனாதோ எழுத்தறிந்தென் சத்தங்கொள் எந்திரத்தின் சார்புற்றார் சோழகிரி வித்தகனே வேறார் விளம்பு. And this verse brings us to the dangers of book knowledge. The next 2 are in the area of fame and praise and abuse. So first, the next verse will be on the dangers of the seeking of fame, and the verse after that, the 38, will be on the subtle aspect of fame, which boils down to day-to-day living, where one seeks praise or affirmation or approval and is severely affected by disapproval or non-affirmation from others. Those are covered in 37 and 38. 39 is on Guru Bhakti and the greatness of the Guru, and the last is on the summation or the essence of the whole work or whole of spiritual teachings. So we come to the verse in question. Katrum adangaril kalladare uindar பற்று மதப்பேயின் பால் உய்ந்தார் சுற்றுபல சிந்தை வாய் நோய் உய்ந்தார் சீர்தேடி ஓடல் உய்ந்தார் உய்ந்ததுன் ரன்றன் உணர். This is a shadow or a reflection or a mirror verse of a verse in Naladiyar, where the Naladiyar deals with someone who has earned wealth and has not understood the art of giving. and how those who have not earned wealth at all are far better off than such wealthy people is the Naladiyar verse. Sadhuvam Swamigal says this verse is a mirror of that verse. But the topic under enquiry is book learning. So instead of wealth, the wealth of book knowledge and the dangers of accumulating book knowledge is what is covered in this verse. Katrum adangaril kalladare uindar. Uindar means they are better off, or they are freed, or they are liberated from the difficulties of. Katrum adangaril, even though they have gone through the arduous process of learning and have not yet got the humility, adangaril. The very purpose of learning, as Tiruvannamalai says, we have seen an earlier verse. In the first verse itself, Agara Mudala Edutalla Adi Bhagavan Mudatre Ulladu. Just as how for the language, the Akara, Ukara and the vowels, these are the beginning points, and without which the language cannot begin or exist. Similarly, the Adi Bhagavan, the one who is ever existing, the eternal being, must be and is the source of all creation. That's how the whole work begins. The master of the language begins his whole work by offering everything to God. And if one has not learned that, then there is the purpose of learning is not fulfilled, he says later. We have seen that verse. So, Katrum Adangaril, having done a lot of sadhana in the area of learning, but you have still not come to the point to know the limitation of learning and the infinite nature of pure knowledge, which can never ever be even touched by accumulating knowledge. If that point has not been reached, then those people who have not reached that point are far worse off than those who have not studied at all and who have just ದೇವ್ರ ಬಿಟ್ಟಂಗೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಅವನು ನಾಟಕ ಆಡಿಸ್ತಾನೆ, ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಆಡಬೇಕು. When such a person says that, then he is far more learned than a PhD holder who has not understood that all learning of addition of discrete data is absolutely zilch compared to the infinity of pure knowledge. Katrum Adangari. Sadhuvam Swamigal, typical to his nature, interprets Adangar as literally meaning have taken their ego to the source, and reading this verse after the previous verse where the purpose of learning was improved upon from mere humility to making effort to take the prarabdha and the ego to the source. Having read that, so here too we should see that the purpose of whatever we have learned is to merge the ego into the source, because the separate ego cannot really know what really is happening anywhere by itself. So because of its separation itself, by separating itself from the source, it removes the capacity to have any kind of true knowledge about anything. A little bit more about that later. As we review some really learned people, we will find what I am trying to point out, that the really learned people not only learn that they cannot learn the whole of what is happening in creation, they learn that they cannot even know an atom. What is an atom? They cannot know. That is the point they come. All their knowledge cannot describe or cannot explain what an atom is, what the minutest, smallest, simplest existence is, that cannot be explained by the mind. That is the point to which they all come to. So Katrum Adangaril. This Adangar means the one who has subdued himself or become humble, generally speaking. But having come through Bhagavan and having read the previous verses leading up to this verse, the 36th verse, we can take it as this Adanguvadu means to go and merge into the source of the ego. Katrum Adangaril Kalladare Uindar. Better than the ones who have learned much but have not learned the art of subduing themselves in the source. The better off ones are those who have not learned at all. What all they have freed themselves of is what is referred to here in the same style as the Naladiyar. That in the Naladiyar also, those who are not having wealth are supposed to be freed of many problems than those who have acquired wealth and not know its limitations. They are far better off who have not acquired wealth at all, the Naladiyar says. Similarly here, what are all the areas in which the unlearned are better off? We had seen that the principal pairs I had taken that discussion from the talks a little bit earlier itself, but this was the verse that was referred by the principal. Oh Bhagavan, I am the principal of a school. I am paraphrasing the talk, you can go and refer. I am the principal of a school where whole book learning is kept as the adhara for educating children. So you have written in this verse, the 36th verse of Anubandham, that those who have not learned anything at all are far better off than those who have learned and not subdued their ego into the source. So does this mean that I should recommend that at some point my children, my students should drop this learning and that this learning is useless? Should I tell like that? He asks, and Bhagavan says, no, that's not what is meant. It is only the pride of learning and the seeking of fame through that learning that is condemned, or that is the danger of which is pointed out, but not the learning itself, says Bhagavan there. So the first line is Katrum Madangare Kalladare Uinga. The second and third and the fourth line explain what are the three areas in which those who have not learned anything are better off. In the talks we get a seeker who comes and says, oh Bhagavan, I don't know anything at all. I don't know anything in the Shastras. I don't know anything about spirituality. What am I to do? And Bhagavan says, okay, you are clear that you don't know anything. See who doesn't know anything. Who doesn't know anything, if you see, that is enough. That will be knowledge enough, he says. That is the Kalladare, Uindar. He doesn't have anything to drop and then take the ego to the source. The knowledge that he doesn't really know anything, to which point all learned people come, is where he is already. Therefore, all he has to do is cross that ignorance and go into the self by asking, for whom is this ignorance of everything? What are the three areas from which they are freed, the unlearned ones? Patru Madappeyin, Patrum Madappeyin Paluindar. The Madam is the ego, Pay is ghost. Patru is the nature of the ego to get attached to whatever it feels it possesses. I possess this, I get attached to that. I take a point of view, I take a million points of view, I am attached to each of them, and I have to juxtapose those points of view exactly against those of the others, especially those whom I consider as my rivals. Patru Madapeyin Paluinda. The danger of the ego raising and getting attached to these million points of education, the knowledge points, which it says this is what it is, and definitely it is not that. That attachment they are freed of, those who have not learned. Because we saw in the earlier verse that when so many attachments to so many knowledge points are there, each of those books become a family, preventing the learned one from yoga with the supreme truth. Patru madapeyin paluinda. So first thing that the unlearned ones are freed of is the attachment of the ego to various book knowledge that has been gathered. Patru madapeyin paluinda. Sutrupala sindhaivai noi uinda. The nature of thought itself is that it goes round and round and round. Sutrupala sindhaivai noi uinda. That is a disease, says Bhagavan here, that you go round and round and round. So in 2011 or 2012, 2012 it must be, that there was a marriage in the family here. So I knew that this was one of the dangers we had, that we will be going round and round and round in the area of thought. So what we decided as a team was that we will note down those areas in which decisions have been made and deliberately not go there. That if someone raises the topic, it has to be said, and otherwise for 3 months or 4 months, the 3-4 people will be going round and round and round the same thoughts, again and again reviewing them, again and again feeling about those things, and lot of life energy is wasted. So one of the things that this knowledge translated into words, we made a checklist. These are the things to be done. When thing has been decided, and we could all see for ourselves how many times the thought unnecessarily went there. It would review, and that life energy which is available for tapas would be sucked away by this noi, this disease of going back again and again to the same thought, again and again telling the same story. You have a story about your life, that's only a point of view. You say that those are the things that happened, but that's only a point of view. If you ask the other person concerned, you say something different. May not be exactly opposite, but definitely a shade or slice different from what you have said. Now, forgetting that it's only a point of view, we will hold on to that and keep on repeating those things again and again as though that is what we are. That story is what we are. Sutrum pala sindhaivai noivinda. It is really a disease. The circular nature of thought, or the nature of thought to go back again and again and again and filter away our energy available for Atma Vicharam. So the ones who have not learned it, they may not even go for such a big marriage and get so much energy lost in the circular thoughts which go back again and again on the same affairs, same things. Sutrupala sindhaivai noi uindar, seer thedi odal uindar. Now, one of the things with learning is that we feel very, very unique, very special. Already, those who have learned in a country like India, we belong to a part of society which is probably in the 2-3% of the higher strata of society, and in that, if they have done the post graduation or some other higher learning, then we feel very special indeed, and we value our knowledge so much that we look down upon others, and we start building on that uniqueness, that separateness, that greatness that we have got, try to show off, gather fame, and of course, since the difference in knowledge is there, the society values us, and for that knowledge it is willing to reward us. And once the reward is seen, the intelligent or clever ways in which more and more wealth can be gathered is done by the intellectuals, because they have the advantage of, within inverted commas, superior intellect. which will boil down to finally nothing. Seer thedi odalu inda. The seer is of two types, says Sadhu Swami. One is the fame, which we are going to discuss in two more verses, and the other is wealth gathering, which I think will be easily understood if one verse is allotted to it. So Bhagavan has stopped discussing about wealth gathering, other than this one mention here, that seer thedi odalu inda. Once you have a knowledge difference with the rest, very few will be like Vishweshwaraya or others who have just gifted away their patents. He just gifted away the patents that he made to various countries so that it could be used. The Sluice Gates patents that he made. Very few are like him who sends back an increment letter given by the Maharaja of Mysore saying that I am already having enough money to take care of the family. So if you want to do anything on this completion of 2 years or 3 years of service of mine, then please attend to the projects I have suggested and go ahead with that. Very few are alert to the dangers of the wealth gathering that is possible. We can't go into the fact whether anybody in that particular situation was free of fame gathering, because that's much more difficult to indicate in a gross way, because it's a very personal thing. And even when somebody is not after fame, it will not be provable. It is a very personal thing. You will have to see your own thoughts and free yourself of which danger is specifically dealt with in two more verses. So the three aspects from which, the three dangers from which the unlearned are freed of are the danger of the ego, which comes with the great problem of attachment to knowledge. Then the very nature of thought as book learning is nothing but gathering of thoughts, and the very nature of thoughts to go circular again and again and again. Like a disease, it goes back into an area which it is not necessary to spend any kind of energy at all, and just dwells on it over and over again. And of course, the seer thedum, the practice of running after fame and wealth, which knowledge brings. These are the three things that the unlearned, the unlearned ones, the simple ones, are, you understand, says Bhagavan, that they are not freed of just one trouble. They are freed of innumerable troubles that can be brought in by book learning, says Bhagavan. To summarize it, better than those who have learned much but have not learned that the purpose of learning is humility alone, or to wipe off the prarabdha through taking the ego to the source alone. If they have not learned that, they are far worse off than the one who has not touched any book at all. Or the one who has not learned anything at all is better off than such ones who have got attachment to what they have learned. Those who have not learned are the blessed ones who have freed themselves of three kinds of dangers, and terrible dangers at that. The danger of pride over all these knowledge points, which we say are the only way to look at things. The being stuck in that disease, which is the rotating or the revolving nature of thought, which goes back and rummages in that place where no re-look is required again and again, and spends life energy on that, and of course differentiates itself, frees proud, and runs after the wealth that can be brought by this knowledge differentiation, and the fame that can be created by using the knowledge differentiation. So let us understand that those who are simple, or those who have freed themselves of whatever they have learned, or those who have not touched books at all, they are not freed from just one trouble, but from many innumerable troubles, which the learned ones have to now understand and free themselves of. Is a way we can look at that verse, the meaning of the verse. Of course, we have begun by saying how Tiruvalluvar, probably even today, acknowledged by many as the most knowledgeable in the area of Tamil knowledge, he begins the work with saying that the very purpose of learning is to know that there is an Adi Bhagavan, and that what we have learned is not even a fistful of sand, when the whole of pure knowledge is like the whole beach or all the sands in the earth. Katradu kaiman alavu, kalladadu ulagalavu. That which you have not learned, that you don't know, is like the whole of the earth, the sand on earth. When what you know is just the fistful of sand, says the really learned ones. Does this really happen like this? Does this really happen like this? That learning brings you humility? We find it is true that it does happen like that, that the truly learned ones. I have sent in the contribution on how Stephen Hawking comes upon humility, that how he works his way through knowledge to come to know that what he knows is nothing. And he says that the source of creativity is that I don't know anything. Where that illiterate person tells Bhagavan, that is the point, the between inverted commas learned person has to come, says Stephen Hawking, to have that source of creativity. Of course, they are still interested in creating something for the world, but they have come up to that point. And a brief look at how he comes to humility is that he says, just like Bhagavan's teaching is there about the fate, he finds that if Niels Bohr has a model of the hydrogen atom with one electron, which says that if a given state of hydrogen atom is given, the next stage can be easily worked out by that model. But we human beings don't even have a model for helium, which has 2 electrons. He says when 2 electrons and more fundamental particles are there, the differential equations become very complex and they are not solvable now, as of now, just not even for the second element. But he says that we have a model for hydrogen proves that the whole creation is predetermined, because any point must have had a previous cause and so on. He comes to that point. However, he also finds that not a single being can know what is predetermined. Not a single being can know what is predetermined, because if that knowledge is given, then the very system of predetermination crumbles. If somebody knows, it's called as a self-referencing system, he says, that if somebody knows that a particular horse is going to win tomorrow, then he places bets on that knowledge. So the current odds which are created by the past sequence of events can be disturbed by him because of his knowledge of the future, exactly that this is what is exactly going to happen. So there is no way a predetermined system can give way to knowledge exactly of what is going to happen to one of the particles, says he, and that is from where he gets his humility. There are many scientists who come to that point. The one more reference I would like to give you is Noam Chomsky, whose video is there in the net, you can see, on grammar, body and mind. He is acknowledged as the highest linguistic authority at some point in time, perhaps not now. That doesn't really matter. We are just discussing how the really learned ones come to humility. If you see that video, he finds that he talks about Galileo and how Galileo wants to have a physical model of the entire creation. He feels he can have a model of this entire creation. It should be explainable like that, like a clock. The whole creation should be explainable. But by the end of his lifetime, what Galileo finds, Noam Chomsky quotes for us. He quotes that Galileo says, not only can we human beings not create a model for the whole creation, but we cannot even create a model for the least bit of creation. The atom in creation also, we cannot create a perfect model so that would lead to the possibility of knowing other things. He comes to that point. Galileo, and though it may appear strange, but it is true that the linguist, he says, the linguist that he says, just like Galileo tells about the physical models, he finds the linguist that he says that grammar is useless by itself. Because there is a life that is underlying, because God has created a life, he doesn't use the word God, but since life is there underlying, grammar is able to stand. But by itself, if you see grammar, it is so full of holes, he says. And he discusses three concepts: body, grammar, body, and mind. And he says that not even a single concept do we know what it is. Not even a single one of those three words do we know the real meaning of, and he goes ahead and shows that we don't know meaning of any of the words. So that is the humility that comes from learning, that what we gathered from discrete data does not give us real knowledge at all. But if we don't know that, if we don't understand this, what happens is that we get carried away by that knowledge, we get carried away by the usage of that knowledge difference, and we get bound. Now, a little bit of look at what exactly then all this knowledge does, that what we have learned. If you go back to Stephen Hawking and see, he says that though we don't know, he says that there are as many neural connections, synapses in our brain as there are stars in the sky. Now, just two particles interacting itself, we don't have the model now and no solution. He says, what is the initial state of one single brain and where it will be next state, we can't calculate today. If the computing grows at the present rate for 200 years, then probably one brain, the differential equations required to solve one brain, we may get. It's a projection, we may get, he says, one brain. But then there are billions of brains of humans, and they are all connected in the subconscious. Now, therefore, he comes to the point that it is not possible to know what a human being is going to think now, or what exactly is going to happen in the weather. It is not possible to predict, he says. However, we can make rules about larger bodies. Though we don't have the rules about fundamental particles, we know how air works, how water works, how steel works. Therefore, we have some rules about engineering, about hydraulics, about pneumatics, which allows us to bring steam engines, cars, which are of use, but of not giving any reality or any indication about what is truth, what is bondage, what is liberation. It never gives. So, the knowledge that we have from science is about from general rules that these bodies, these large bodies generally behave like this. And if you dig deeper into it, you find that the same is the case with psychology. No psychologist or at any point in time can psychology come and tell what Nandakumar is going to speak next. So I cannot know what thought God is going to give me just because of knowledge of psychology. But general behavior of human beings, what is narcissism, what is the various types of behavioral improvements that we can make, personality development, all these generally they can say. But no amount of study of psychology can ever say what is going to be the next thought that is going to be generated in me. Same is the case we find about law and jurisprudence, which have their background in philosophy. We find that jurisprudence and law, they have to rely on general rules like even if 1,000 criminals are set free or let go of, not a single innocent one should be punished. And if you ask some real lawyer or judge who knows law, he says that sometimes in my entire career I have seen justice done. But still that is enough. That amount of general direction of ethics, jurisprudence and all is enough for humanity to follow it. That general law, though that very law which Socrates helps creates, it is shown to punish him. But the way he tells, the day he is to be hanged or he has to drink the poison, his student comes and says all arrangements have been made so that you can go off to the next country. They are willing to innovative. But he says, I know these laws are relative, but these are the meditational tools that are available for society, and I have helped create those meditational tools. I know they are imperfect. That is why they have judged me. The law I have created has judged me like this in one sense. But if I don't submit myself to that law, how can I ask the general people to meditate on it, to have that as a tool for guiding their mind to relative peace, from where they can inquire into who am I and the higher truths. So he submits himself to that hemlock, drinking that, this one, saying that though this is relative law, which is the best up to which philosophy, jurisprudence and lawmaking can come up to, so we find that science, philosophy, what can an artist or a literary person do, a poet do? Can he exactly pinpoint that point where the samadhi happens? It cannot be done like that. But they can indicate what is beauty, what is greatness. And when one reads that, the inner state, if it is refined enough, Bhagavan says when some literature is read to him, this is like Upanishads, he says. But why is he able to recognize that? Because Bhagavan is in Samadhi. He is able to recognize that these words have some pointing nature towards the truth. But can the words themselves take one to the truth? Cannot. One has to do the spiritual sadhana. The book learning can come only thus far. It is all general rules which are applicable about general nature of things and never about the exact nature of truth and exact nature of bondage and liberation. This is what the general learning can do for us from the outside world. This is what Chomsky also says. What is the purpose of science? He is asked, because he concludes his talk by saying, what best we can do is to be a manservant, to be a humble laborer to pure knowledge and clear a little bit of debris here or there. That's all we can do. The people who have learned, that's all we can do, he says. So he talks about surrender to pure knowledge. But coming to this general nature of the book learning, the science, the philosophy, the law, and all those things, that is what is called as dream by Bhagavan. That is what is called as impermanence by Buddhism. That is what is called as the Leela of God by Dvaitist teachings. That is called as the impermanence in sadhana but permanence in Siddhate by Visishtadvaita. That is what is called as, treat it as Pratibhasika Satya or the dream. Says Bhagavan, treat the world as a dream, because what you learn from the world will never be the accurate thing. It will only be a general understanding. By even the greatest of scientists, they come that only general understandings of things and improvement of general usage of things can be there, but it can never point out to where exactly we are stuck. All the science learning cannot help when you feel hurt by somebody talking ill of you. If you are, that hurt has to be seen by observing oneself inside. That is the limit up to which learning can come. That is why Bhagavan says, treat that as a dream. Treat the world as a dream. And now in meditation, in Atma Vicharam, when thoughts come, you are already sitting freed of the sensory perceptions. Now it is all dream world which is coming as forms and thoughts and names in your mind. Don't follow the dream. Hold the dreamer, he says. Hold the dreamer. The dreamer is the reality, not the dream made of thoughts. When discussing dimensions, why even the jnani cannot point out this truth in this world. When we look at that point, we find that even scientists find that even the fourth dimension cannot be indicated in the three-dimensional world. In explaining that, one of the scientists, Carl Sagan, says that easily we can think of where we are now bound in the three-dimensional world. If you take single dimension as a line, then At 90 degrees to that plane, if you put more lines, then you get 2 dimensions of length and breadth. And this is a flat surface, no height, length and breadth is there. If you go 90 degrees to that plane, then you get the cube. That means the 3-dimensional thing, which is where we are. Now, if to go to the 4th dimension, trapped in this 3-dimension, even the scientist cannot show from where the 4th dimension lies, because that 4th dimension is at 90 degrees to this whole plane of 3 dimensions. Remaining bound in these 3 dimensions of senses, we cannot, but he points out that though we cannot point it out in this dimension, we can think of it. Thought can think of higher dimensions. So where are the higher dimensions even according to the scientist? They are all inside us. Where does the one who gives you mantra on Pitruloka, where does he find the mantras to take the soul in its journey after death? He finds it inside. That means he does dhyana as to what happens, where does he go, and what is the onward journey, whether it is required or not in Atma Ucharam. Bhagavan says all those lokas are not required. But where is that plane? That plane is inside us as the form of thoughts. So thoughts can go through all the dimensions, but it cannot take us to the self. So, and as book learning is made of thoughts, it can only remain bound in the 3-dimensional world. At the best, it can point out to higher dimensions that can be inside us as to how emotions, how to thinking and right and wrong, the ethics, how they have to be regulated by human application, not in the books, but by actual living. Actual living by ethics, actual living by dhyana, actual living by giving love to all. When we find today, what is happening today to the modern intellectual, all the dangers that have been discussed as book learning in the past 3 shlokas, we find in the youngster. Some of them openly argue with you. They are better off. At least you can tell the points which are juxtaposed and leave it for the light of intelligence within everyone, which is present in everyone, to digest it and reveal it. Oh, this is what probably it is, and this is what Bhagavan says he can tell, and at least he has to digest it, having argued with us. But there are many intellectuals, youth of today, who right away dismiss you without even giving as you don't know nothing, that what can there be in Bhagavan's teachings. Now that leaves a teacher or a person dealing with the youth of today who are so much exposed to the dangers of book learning. What are all the dangers of book learning? The attachment to what they know. They know a little bit about this or a little bit about that. They know a little bit about punching the mobile or operating the Wi-Fi band, and they feel they know about life much more than what the spiritual person knows. In fact, they go to the extent of doubting whether there is God. We find this happen. But what does Bhagavan say? Is the person who is dealing with the youngsters or where humanity is going today, is he to be perplexed? Absolutely not. Bhagavan says, your perplexed nature about the other people's learning difficulties or the dangers that they are exposed to is your own attachment, is your own knowledge. Whereas in each of them, whatever may be their condition, the Atma is present, the Self is present. The Self is not absent. The light of knowledge, true knowledge, is not absent in anyone. Whether they may be unlearned, or whether they may be learned, or whether they may appear to be having lots of difficulties or less difficulties, the Paramatma is not outside anyone. He is very much there within everyone. As Bhagavan says, doing the needful from within always. The Atma is doing the needful for each one from within. So when we learn about the dangers of book learning, we should apply it to ourselves. We should apply it to where we are stuck, where we have the danger. It should not be used perhaps as a tool of judgment on others. This one has to take care of. Otherwise, this itself can be a eternal criticism we can engage in, because the outside world is going to become more intellectual only, more book learning based. So if we get into that act of starting to comment on the way in which humanity is going, what all dangers they face, the whole society, now that becomes a negative shadow on the whole of others by us, from which to turn inward will become even more difficult. See, this fact we have to see that whenever we have a negative opinion of one person, it is only from that one negative opinion we have to go inside. When we have negative opinion of whole society or whole humanity, or the whole way in which creation is going, then that turning inward becomes more difficult, because you see validation of your thinking from here, from there. Oh, that person, it is like this. That person, he is definitely gone. He has learned 101 books. He is gone. So these verses about book learning, one should take care that one is not going to use it as a point of criticism on others. It is to be used for self-knowledge, that how I can be stuck. Obviously, God is present with everyone, within everyone as self. There is always hope for the entire creation, as Bhagavan says to Ramaswamy Iyer. Ramaswamy Iyer, in one of the moments, in his presence with Bhagavan, asks, "Oh Bhagavan, the way in which world is going, Jesus has said that day that there is hope. Is there hope for mankind?" Bhagavan says, "There is hope. There is hope. There is hope." He says 3 times. As God never leaves any of us. Always there is hope for everyone. Never judge anyone. Whatever situation they may be in, God is present within them. You are not greater than that power. You are not asked to do something more than what God is doing from within them. The self is present within everyone. Never become arrogant to judge another is one suggestion that I can make. That these things can themselves become a point of knowledge, and we can start looking at others who is having more book knowledge and who is more stuck. From that danger, one has to, because in Bhagwan, it's always the individual who is targeted. It's my book learning that I have to free myself of. There is always hope for humanity, because God never leaves any of its creation. He permeates creation. Our job as an individual is to understand that. And if at all we have a single thought that this whole humanity is going towards the darkness of book learning, we should inquire for whom is this thought, and then turn that attention inside, because it is our ajnana which we are transposing on this society, which we are transposing or superimposing on others, that others are all done for. So that ajnana has to be looked at. It is my lack of knowledge, it is my lack of knowledge of the self in all, that is making me judge another or judge the whole of the learned community. So that danger also is to be averted by asking, for whom is this criticism of book learning? With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us resort to the Brahmastram of Atma Ucharam, and the beauty of the lesson it teaches about the self by practicing Atma Ucharam for 10 minutes. Namo Ramana. Namo Ramana. Akka is there?
Namo Ramana, sir. Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining is a self in all beings. We have in Ramana Ashtotram the Nama Vinataya Namaha. Vinata means one who is most humble. And that is followed by the next Nama, Vinutaya Namaha, one who is adored by the whole world. And Bhagavan says in Ramanacentre also that because of you kept on male thaandidum melliyar serndani menmai utranai arunachala. And Shiva Prakasham Pillai also says Thaalatthala nalamigum endru thalvon padam vaalgave. So Bhagavan is here pointing out to us the reverse problem, the absence of humility, which is very likely to come through book learning, or here we may take it as any form of learning also. Not just book learning, it can come through any knowledge. Sometimes if one has a lot of learning, of course, my friend Dr. Kalarani gives a joke, he says, she will say that, one scientist went to a garden and he saw all the plants and said, this plant is not growing. I will tell you how to put the manure, how to do everything, and it will give a lot of mangoes. And that gardener said, no, sir, not possible. Why not possible? Because not a mango tree at all. Now, see, something very simple we may miss if there is a lot of knowledge. Yes, then Bhagavan is now pointing out to the arivu patru, or the attachment to knowing something. If knowledge does not lead to its real benefit, which is humility, the real benefit of knowledge, as Nandakumarji pointed out to us, was to make us know the frontiers of knowledge. The point of knowledge is only to make you understand that the knowledge is limited. And that knowledge, real knowledge, has to give humility to all of us. It gives humility. When my sister Dr. Ambika, she started studying about the special needs, to teach children with special needs. When she studied about the brain, she immediately said, we are incapable of moving even moving our finger an inch. We do not know. We are so blessed. Because we are blessed, we are able to move. Anything can go wrong anywhere in the human system at any point of time. So that knowledge comes to us. But it could be the other way also. And that is what Bhagavan is pointing out, the attachment to knowledge. I had one very interesting experience. When I was traveling in Shatabdi, there was one mother and young boy, I think he might have been 3 years old. He must have been just learning his nursery rhymes, ABCD and all. And we at Ramanacentre, we have a nursery rhyme, ABCD, E to Z. In every life on earth and sea, Ramana says, God's power shines as I am. So that's what our poem is. So I thought I was very excited about this, my knowledge, of this poem. And I started reciting this to that boy. But the boy got disturbed. He got disturbed. He said, no, not A, B, C, D, E to Z. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Not on every life on earth and sea. It is like something else comes after that. Only that. So I said, fine. Okay, that's right. Because, that was even that little bit of learning. Just learning A, B, C, D, E, F, G, something different from that could disturb him so much. It shows us the attachment that we have to any field of knowledge. And this attachment comes the moment I see something in front of me. I say, this is what it is. And if somebody else tells me it is not this, I cannot accept it. When I hear something, I say, this is what it is. And if somebody says this is not what it is, I cannot accept it. So the non-acceptance of the limits of our knowledge is what Bhagavan is pointing out over here. And this is there in the legend of Brahma Vishnu in Arunachala. Normally interpreted, Kanakamma says, that Vishnu is possession, material possession, and Brahma stands for knowledge. It's difficult to give up the ego of knowledge. But I was just thinking today, as the Nandakumarji was explaining the verse, and especially the first line, if you learn and you're still not able to adangadar, katrum adangadar. See, katrum adangadar. Despite learning, if you have not subsided, then when are you going to subside? So the learning which was there, Vishnu got the learning. This is not something which can be measured. And he surrendered. Katra adanginar. Now, if you see the story of Brahma, Katrum Adangadar, in that story, he represents one who, though knowing that knowledge is limited, is not ready to accept it. He wants to prove that his knowledge is right. He wants to get proof for his own knowledge. That's how where we see that the limits of that knowledge and the patra of the knowledge, and going round and round in circles to establish the rightness of that knowledge itself. Going round and round. Why do we go round and round? Why do we think again and again? We think again and again to prove ourselves to be right in this identification. That's all. Round and round we go in that circle. But if somebody is simple, then the moment they are told, the moment they hear something from the Sadguru, Bhagavan, that's why he says, Adani and Rammaraigal Artidavum. You have already been told. What is there further to think about it? What makes me further think about it? It is to hold on to my field of knowledge. If I am thinking about anything at all, I do it only to hold on to the known field, the field of knowledge. So Bhagavan is saying the field of knowledge is limited. Don't hold on to it. Be simple. Sometimes, this field of knowledge, it can lead to ego, as Bhagavan has said, not only with reference to the knowledge which we have about any field of knowledge, but it can also be about ourselves. I can say that, supposing I believe in telling the truth, I can have pride in my righteousness. I may not have subsided that ego. So on learning, one has to subside that every ego of what one has learned. That's why sometimes we find that when Bhagavan, people with knowledge come to Bhagavan, they keep on asking many questions. Whereas we find that very beautiful incident of a person who thinks that he is a sinner. He doesn't think he is good. He doesn't think he is right. Very often in life, people who think they are good, they are right, they will say, why is God punishing me? I am good. I am right. I have not done anything wrong. I am his devotee. Why has suffering come to me? So the knowledge that I am his devotee has not brought us surrender. Whereas a person who is unlearned, as Bhagavan says, whereas a person who thinks he's a sinner, he came to Bhagavan and he said, Bhagavan, I'm a sinner. Hey, save me. You have to save me. And Bhagavan said, you give all that which is good in you. And he's so sweet. He says, there's nothing good in me. I have not done anything good to give you. But Bhagavan doesn't leave him. He says, no, you don't want to give what is good. Because in case some subtle thought is there in him that I might have done something good. So he says, if I have done something good, without my knowledge, I give that to you. And then Bhagavan says, give all that which is bad. And there he has a knowledge. See, that knowledge also he has to surrender. He has a knowledge. He says, what I have done, the bad which I have done is so bad that it will burn you if I give it to you. That is the knowledge which he is holding on to. And Bhagavan says, leave that to me. Leave that to me. And then if you want me to help you, leave that to me. And he leaves it. So that is the point which Bhagavan is saying. We have to surrender. The ultimate point is to surrender. So the ultimate point of learning is to surrender. If we don't do it, then we are in that big abyss which Bhagavan is pointing out the dangers. You will be holding on to your ego. You will be going round and round in circles. You will be searching for some recompense from the knowledge that you have. That is shir, that is wealth, the wealth of blessings from him. Whatever the wealth we are seeking, we will be seeking some benefit from the knowledge unless we subside. And that is the greatness. Bhagavan is saying that is the greatness of anything that you have learned. Whether you have learned about anything in this world, whether you have learned about spiritual life, use it to subside. Use it to subside. Otherwise, there is this danger. You will get caught. That is the grace of Bhagavan. He is pointing out to us the danger of the possibility of getting caught despite learning. I mean, after having come to this great knowledge about self-abidance, now you should not get caught, isn't it, says Bhagavan. Now you should subside, isn't it? There are examples of people who have recognized the frontier. And then we see Shastri Mama, who had that great knowledge. In Bhagavan's life, we see that knowledge of the astrology. He had the ultimate point. And he knew the future, and he knew that nothing can be done. Bhagavan told him nothing can be done about the future. He even knew about the future. And he wondered whether he could change it. But Bhagavan, Bhagavan said nothing can be done, he accepted that. And when Bhagavan said self-knowledge is a higher knowledge, he must have had so much regard for his science that something higher than that is there. It is worth dropping this. That much of regard he must have had for his science also. This knowledge, is it not the greatest, such a great knowledge, the Vidya of Jyotisha? Yes, it is, says Bhagavan. He does not deny it. But this is greater still. So, okay, drop it. So when one reaches that point where all learning has to be dropped in self-inquiry, yes, everything that is learned is beautiful. Each step is more beautiful in self-inquiry itself. The recognition that thoughts are only thoughts is one great, beautiful recognition. But one has to move on from there to the question, for whom is the thought? Forget that thoughts are thoughts. Forget that one is a witness. Forget that one is superior to thoughts by being a witness. Then who is this witness? That question. Then even that question, who is the witness, subsides into the Aham Spurana, as Nanda Kumarji often tells us, into the Aham Spurana. Then even that awareness is, nothing is sought. That is what is the adangal. That is what is the humility. That is what is the humility. The humility of seeking nothing. Not in the last warning which Bhagavan gives us in this verse, isn't it? Not to seek fame, not to seek wealth from repeatedly Nanda Kumarji has told us, when you get to the Aham Spurana, don't seek anything from it. When you get to that point of knowledge also, don't seek anything from that knowledge. Don't seek any wealth, don't seek any further recognition on account of getting there. And if one is ready to drop that also, then Bhagavan would reveal himself to us as the self by his infinite grace, because of which he is dinning this into us again and again, because of which he shows not only the light, but also shows to us the possible darkness where we may go astray. Because otherwise, unknowingly, see here, knowledge matters. Knowledge matters. The knowledge that we may go astray matters. But knowing it, as Nanda Kumarji said, it's not for judging anybody. It's not for saying so-and-so has gone astray, so-and-so has made this mistake, so-and-so is having an ego. Very, very common among spiritual discussions. So-and-so has an ego. How can I recognize an ego if I don't have an ego? So it is for us to dive within, to hold on, and to drop everything other than the self by his infinite grace. Om Namo Bhagavate Ramanacentre.